Welcome to another edition of Mining Life Online, conversations with some of today's most exciting and influential leaders in the world of mining. Brought to you by Canadian TradeX, Central Canada's most prolific trade show producers. Book your booth for our next show today, before your competition does. And now, here's today's show. Once again, welcome to Terry Lynch, the founder and I guess executive director now of Save Canadian Mining. It's been several months since we last chatted about this particular project. I know that you've had the opportunity to meet with a provincial task force that is looking into a number of issues, including those of Save Canadian Mining. So tell me a little bit about that encounter with the task force and how you came away. What went through your mind when you came away from that meeting?
Yeah, well, I think we had a very good meeting with the task force, and we had a number of good meetings with the government, the four government, various ministries, Ministry of Small Business, Ministry of Mining, and of course, Ministry of Finance. And all the ministries are supportive of making capital markets more healthy for junior miners in specific and generally across the board. So I think they're focused on making the markets more efficient and more fair, especially for the individual investor. So that's good, and they're getting the message that, hey, there's something broken here, something was wrong, and I think that's part of it, because these are complicated concepts in a way, that people that aren't day to day involved with financial markets, to say what is the tick test as an example, which has been one of our objectives, is just even explaining it, can make people's heads spin.
But I'm going to put you on the spot and have you do that any second, as soon as.
Yeah, we put together a video on it because it was better that way. But I'm happy to take a shot at it. But generally speaking, I would say we had a very frank conversation. We had a bunch of our founders at the table with the task force. It wasn't just me. It was Gary Clark from the Prospectors Association, the TMX with Brady Fletcher, Eric Sprott's representative, Conor O'Brien. So and many junior mining companies as well. So we it's not just me. It was a coalition of the willing, really, who really want to see a healthy change in our marketplace, so that normal access to capital will be fulfilled, and miners can go out and do the hard job of trying to find resources and ultimately bring them to market and develop it into mines. We know how difficult that is, and whatever we can do to streamline that process and make it more fair and more realistic, then it would be good for our society. So that's what our objective has been, and I think what we brought to the task force was we brought our research. We had hired Murenbield, which is a very well respected. I'd say they're mostly a gold research analyst company, but they obviously they're a data analyst. So we had them sort of look at our whole thesis at Save Canadian Mining was that in 2012 we changed the regulations, inadvertently to I guess allow algorithmic trading. And what happened was that they basically took out this rule, which is called the tick test, and we'll get to that fun part of me trying to explain what the tick test is. The tick test is pretty simple. If you had a stock, and let's call it Bob's Mining, okay, and Bob's Mining traded for 50 cents on Monday, okay. Now, if I wanted to short Bob's Mining on Tuesday, with the tick test, I had to wait for Bob's Mining to go to 51 cents. I could only short it on the uptick. Okay, if I wanted to short Bob's Mining below 50 cents, I couldn't do it up until 2012. And the reason why they did that is that because theoretically, if I've just bought Bob's Mining on the Monday as just an ordinary investor, and then I wake up on Tuesday, nothing's changed. Bob's Mining didn't issue a press release and say, hey, our drilling program was a disaster. We got bagel. It's just an ordinary day. And all of a sudden, stocks at 45 cents go into 42 cents because some hedge fund has decided that, hey, Bob's Mining is pretty small. and their bid and ask on the stock market is not trading like IBM, so we can get on there and we can force this issue down, and we're going to be able to cover beneath our what we'll sell at 50 cents, at 48, 47, 46, and ultimately buy back in at 35, because we know Bob's Mining needs money for its up and coming drill program. They're going to have to finance. So that's what's happened. Okay, that's predatory. So that's got nothing to do with market dynamics of Bob's Mining being successful or not successful. It's got to do with pure financial force. And that's happened across the board, not just in mining. I mean, we collected, a mining group because 40% of the TSXV is mining. And, we're easy to sort of see from a capital perspective because mining programs are announced in advance. They're very well laid out in terms of cost. So you know what your capital needs are, and they're predictable when it's over. So it's unlike a lot of ongoing businesses who have different, timing on capital requirements. Mining is much more predictable, so it was easy to sort of pick on us, and they did.
And Bob and his family and his second mortgage and all of his assets are likely tied up in that junior mining company as well. I know that's not always the case, but it's certainly part of that world. And so you have these hedge fund managers, or whoever happens to be doing the predatory short selling, really just going in and destroying, in some cases, a life's worth of work for some people.
Yeah, and it's sort of it keeps these companies undercapitalized, and two things happen when you're undercapitalized. One, you're going to make more mistakes because you don't have bandwidth to sort of deal with issues. You're not not getting as much drilling in as necessarily as you'd want. And drilling is very much a shot on goal business. I mean, you got to have good science, but it's ultimately about, hey, how many shots am I taking? Because, Mother Earth doesn't give it up very easily. It's a very difficult beast to crack, and you need to have shots on goal. And that's what drilling gives you. And analysis of the drilling, with your scientists and geoscientists, ultimately moves you forward or back. And obviously, if you're undercapitalized, you can't afford the analyst, you can't afford the drilling. It is ripples rolling through. And these are highly paid jobs, right? Generally speaking, mining, if you are employed in the sector, it's very well paid. You got geologists and geophysicists and engineers. And then if you get into the mining development where you go to the mines, those miners are making, six figures, and God bless them. That's well deserved. And also from a societal perspective, mining is probably the biggest employer of minorities in this country, percentage-wise. Our native population, which we need to do a lot more for, they're way more represented in mining than in any other sector. So if we want to actually do some good in that area, well, that would be a great sort of sector to support. So for all these reasons, we want to eliminate the counterproductive predatory short behavior, because it doesn't do our society good. It enriches people that don't even live here. Generally speaking, 99% of those funds are offshore. So if they're making profits, they're not paying tax. Not paying tax to Canada, so there's not even like a profit there that we can tax and at least maybe redeploy that. That's gone. So it's like, if we want to sort of have fair capital markets so individual investors can actually benefit from making, wise choices and getting into a portfolio of assets, like mining would probably be a great place to go today. Well, let's give them a fair shot. That's what Eric is saying, and Eric's brought, and we're 100% behind that.
Do you get the sense that the members of the task force that you had the opportunity to present to, do you get the sense that they and others truly understand the value added of mining to the Canadian economy?
Yeah, I do got to say that I get the sense that they understand how valuable mining is.
Yeah.
I don't think we've yet convinced them, because obviously they didn't have the tick test as part of their recommendations, although they've indicated to us that they're still open to putting it in, and they're looking for some more discussion and research on that, and we're working on putting that together for them. So I have no doubt that they recognize mining is super impactful, and I don't see an anti-mining headspace amongst certainly not amongst the Ford government, and not amongst the task force members. I
Do you have
see them
a
as being pro-mine.
Yeah? Do you have a sense of what the timetable is going to look like for a decision? They obviously.
Yeah, so I think they've told us that they put out this commentary, or they put out their initial recommendations for commentary. They're looking to get commentary back by September 6th. So I would say, we need to rally the troops and redouble the efforts between now and then, and and sort of shortly thereafter in September to get the task force to buy into. Making their observations about predatory short selling, put it into something that is meaningful in terms of membership. One of the interesting things that, it's been a journey for me because, I knew short selling. I never sold a stock short in my life until I got into this. I've always been a long investor. I didn't really understand it. But, obviously now I've become painfully well aware of this whole business. And we had a conversation, Eric Sprott and his partner and myself, and we had a conversation with the leading U.S. Lawyer in the space. He's won several multi-million-dollar settlements from some of the biggest banks in the world, J.P. Morgan, Merrill Lynch, on and on. And all these settlements have been settled where they couldn't discuss the terms of the settlement. Mm. But these are like multi-million-dollar settlements, that they won. But in talking with them, we found and this guy was super helpful as lawyer. Each case was 2-3 years to process, cost $2 to $3 million to execute. So it's like, it's massively complicated, to prove predatory short selling. So just to say predatory short selling is illegal, let's make it illegal, that's not going to be enough to really make a meaningful difference in the capital markets, in my view. There needs to be more measurable tactical plans, regulatory wise or whatever, that is actually actionable. And they've got some suggestions in the report, and I think we hope to give them some more, because if you think it's hard to raise money for drilling in junior mining, try and raise money to fight lawsuits. Forget it, not happening. The concept of getting $2 or $3 million to fight predatory short selling a lawsuit, not happening. I know some bigger companies that are worth $100 million plus who have massive problems with short sellers, but they can't even go down that pathway. Yet it's a problem, and it's sad, because it's in my view, short selling is such an issue. The predatory short selling, it really is engaging our capital markets, because it makes them less efficient and less fair, and it leads to this. That's where you get the left wing sort of anti-capitalist agendas out there saying, hey, look at this, these unfair things, and in that respect, they're not wrong. And if we want to have a free society and a society where our work and effort does make a difference, and capitalism is definitely the best system, we need to make sure it's not cronyism, and that it is capitalism, and that we have fair and full, plain, and true disclosure and transparency for all, and all investors are treated equally, and not we haven't structured things so it's imbalanced, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to change this imbalance.
The news release that you put out yesterday on behalf of Save Canadian Mining talked about there being 14 marketplaces in Canada. Do you see that as being problematic as well?
I do. This was one of the trade-offs that when they brought the rule in, when they took out the reason why we say the tick test was an inadvertent rule change. They didn't come up with some study that says, hey, we got to get rid of the tick test because it's bad. That wasn't the case. They literally, when they allowed algorithmic trading, was my understanding, because I did speak out around at that time. It was basically the Ontario Securities Commission at the time said, hey, if we're going to allow algorithmic trading, we're going to make sure that the exchanges don't profiteer on this. and so we need to allow competition to the exchanges, so that you keep your per share price on the transactions down, so that you're not, having a monopoly and unduly profiting. So that was the theory, and so that's why they allowed multiple exchanges. That was the primary driver of it, I think that concept may not have been wrong, but the execution has been poor, and what they should have asked is saying, hey, at the time when they allowed all these multiple exchanges, they didn't have the technology to have a consolidated tape. So in other words, and I feel bad, like even today, most individual investors, buy, Bob's Mining as an example, and they look in the Globe or on their or on the ticker, and most of the information they receive would be the trades, typically in the TSXV. Okay, the number of the volume on TSXV. The TSXV is maybe 50% of the volume now. So all these other exchanges have a big chunk as well. And the problem is the average individual doesn't get that info. So it's really unfair. They're the hedge funds, they get it all because they can afford to have all those systems. Individual guy can't afford the Bloomberg fees to get multiple exchanges and pay $150 a month to get all that data. That's not his business. Would tap into his costs too much. So those types of things have been prejudicial to individual investors, and I don't think our regulators have thought through enough looking after individual investors, through such things as consolidated tapes, and obviously predatory short selling, because and at the core of our capitalist system is the individual investor. Yeah. We individually invest in things, or we invest in mutual funds, or our pension funds are investing in things, and it's really sad, But on the good news, to put a positive spin on it, great that the Ford government recognized that this was an area of concern, the whole Ontario Securities Act. Great that they got the commission together and they put together a really good set of the first good. I got no complaints over the first set of recommendations they made. There's a lot of good stuff in there. We need to get more good stuff in there, but they're off to a good start, and that's a great step forward.
Terry, we have just a couple of minutes left. If anyone wants to get involved, if anyone wants to lend their support to the cause, what kind of, two things. Number one, how do they go about doing that? And secondly, what kind of support would be ideal for you going forward?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get involved, just go to savecanadianmining.com and you can register there, and there's an ability to donate. You can donate, sort of as little as you want to. We've had companies donate, 15,000. Eric Sprott's donated more than that. And generally speaking, what we've tried to, we've run a very lean machine here. It's pretty much the volunteers and the groups, and we probably spend about $20,000 a month just writing the advocacy. I get nothing. There's nothing in it for me. I've been a contributor too, and so we're probably, our budget is $250,000, and we've raised something in the probably half that. So we're going back out generally to corporations to support that, because it's in their interest. They're really advocating for their individual investors to do that. So I think if corporations are listening, then step up for $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 and help us get this rule change, which is going to make it a lot easier for you on the capital market side. And we want to just get this rule changed, and we want to get on with life. This is not something Terry Lynch wants to be doing 3 years from now. Save Canadian Mining has just got a very narrow focus of trying to get some rule change that's positive, and then it's I got my own mining company to focus on, and it's own unique set of challenges.
Terrific. Terry, thanks for joining us today, and we hope to be talking to you again very soon with a positive outcome on this.
Okay, I hope so too. Thanks again, Kevin. Have a great day. Cheers.
You, Terry.